Welcome to our world. President of the Russian Federation, Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin. Dear forum participants, ladies and gentlemen, friends, I am pleased to welcome you to Russia, to St. Petersburg. For the 10th time, our northern capital is hosting cultural envoys from various nations around the world. Each such meeting, like culture itself, reflects the spirit of the times, raising the most important, pressing, and significant issues. The Forum of United Cultures serves as one of the meaningful responses to the complex challenges that countries and peoples face today. Its very name signifies the recognition of the world's civilizational diversity, the natural right of people to their own identity, respect for traditional values and religions, and, of course, the unconditional equality of nations in shaping the global cultural agenda. These approaches and principles were enshrined in the declaration adopted at last year's forum. Their relevance today is higher than ever. The importance of humanism and dialogue, mutual respect, and trust in the world is shared by the global majority. Yet, regrettably, these values are under constant pressure and threat of erosion, primarily due to the unprecedented politicization of the cultural sphere and its transformation into a tool of geopolitical intrigue. There are continuous efforts to marginalize and undermine national value systems, everything that doesn't align with the agenda pushed by the so-called globalist elites and the ruling circles of certain countries. In Russia, we have clearly defined our core values. We have enshrined them in the nation's fundamental law, the Constitution. We protect these values and all who share them. Like us, they hold sacred the right of people to speak their native language and preserve the faith of their ancestors, to live in harmony with nature and its natural laws. The outcome of these efforts will, without exaggeration, determine both the future world order and the prospects for culture. We are convinced that culture must and can exist without crude interference, without the so-called cancel culture, which is essentially the cancellation of culture itself. Diplomacy, after all, is often called an art form. To master it requires not only knowledge and talent. Diplomacy is also culture, the culture of actions, emotions, and speech. It is this culture that imparts the understanding of what can and cannot be said or done to avoid irreparable consequences. Culture has always been a kind of safeguard for peace. In some countries, it seems that this safeguard has burned out. Many contemporary high-ranking politicians have lost their moral compass, crossing lines that were upheld even in the most tense moments of the Cold War. In countries governed by such elites, citizens gradually begin to accept xenophobia, and then extreme forms of discrimination and persecution, whether on national, ethnic, or religious grounds, as the norm. We all know how swiftly such a situation can lead to the dehumanization of ruling regimes and the devastating consequences for countless families and people of all ages. We are witnessing this firsthand. That is why a recent presidential decree was signed in Russia to provide humanitarian support to people who share traditional Russian spiritual and moral values. We are not fighting against other values, we are supporting our own. This is the key difference between us and our opponents. This decision was made in response to the growing number of requests from countries where people are essentially deprived of the freedom to choose. Primarily, this concerns families with children, against whom local authorities impose distorted moral frameworks. There have also been numerous appeals from cultural figures, by the way, who are unwilling to force their creativity into the rigid quotas and criteria imposed by foreign neoliberal standards. These standards are actively promoted by certain media outlets, shaping what is known as the mainstream. If an author wishes their work to appear on stage or screen or to be published, they are forced to follow this mainstream. And if there is any dissent or doubt expressed in their works or even in private statements by a writer, director, or actor, they face ostracism and cancellation. Moreover, we increasingly see how the value agenda promoted by Western elites not only ignores but sometimes deliberately insults the world's major religions and the cultural traditions of entire regions. I am certain that such approaches are not acceptable to the majority of nations and peoples. They envision the future of culture as being rooted in mutual respect and trust, in equal international cooperation in this sphere. As we once again host the forum, during a challenging time for us, we are firmly convinced of the vital necessity of cultural dialogue. Your voices, dear friends, must be heard. Intrusive propaganda is powerless in the face of true art. Those who serve art possess a heightened sensitivity to the pulse of the era and society's needs. They can distinguish between true and false values and understand who sincerely advocates for peace, prosperity, and friendship among peoples, and who hides selfishness, superiority, destructive intentions, and a sense of exceptionalism behind the right words. Your creative, scientific, and educational work holds enormous potential for peace-building and countering division. It preserves human connections and has the power to heal the wounds inflicted by conflicts and wars. That is why it is essential for you to have the opportunity to communicate, exchange ideas, and bring joint projects to life. Russia is one of the most multi-ethnic countries in the world, and we are genuinely pleased to provide such a platform for you, especially within the framework of today's forum. We understand that the dialogue of cultural development is a constant process of interaction and mutual enrichment. We recognize the immense creative force inherent in the unity of different cultures and traditions. This unity is the source of our national identity and the foundation of such core values as mutual aid, justice, compassion, historical memory, and continuity between generations, strong family bonds, patriotism, and civic responsibility. Russia, this is particularly for our international audience, has always been a multi-ethnic state, and this has undeniably influenced our traditions. This is the foundation of both our common identity and our spiritual strength. We place great importance on cultural development. The infrastructure of museums, theaters, clubs, and libraries is constantly being updated. We are restoring temples, reconstructing embankments, parks, squares, and public spaces. All of this is not only a humanitarian endeavor but also a vital factor in the development of all our regions. I recently visited Tuva and saw the progress of the local religious community. We are building hundreds, perhaps already thousands, of new mosques, churches, and synagogues. This development is in full swing, gaining momentum. Of course, nothing like this existed in either Imperial or Soviet Russia. We are doing a lot to preserve cultural heritage sites. We plan to adopt a long-term program, which we will implement not only through the state budget but also with the support of benefactors. We have experience with this, and we intend to build on it. We understand how important it is to restore old estates and churches. They are tangible embodiments of our centuries-old history and national identity. Humanitarian ties, cooperation in the fields of art and education, and youth exchanges are among the priorities of Russia's BRICS presidency. BRICS is an organization that serves as a prototype of a multipolar world, where the principles of mutual respect, independent paths of development, and the practical realization of the key UN Charter principle, sovereign equality of all states prevail. This year, Russia is also chairing the Commonwealth of Independent States, CIS, and through both the CIS and BRICS, an unprecedented number of projects are being implemented. The meetings within these organizations are also part of the business agenda of your forum. For example, as far as I know, yesterday there was a meeting of the culture ministers of the forum's participating countries. I am pleased to welcome you in this hall, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, and to thank you for your contribution to expanding intercultural dialogue and for your efforts to enrich it with bright, creative content and bold initiatives. I believe the time has come to formulate a new, shared international framework for national cultures. In today's world, the most successful societies are those where people are motivated and inspired by culture, and where they can rely on a solid foundation of their values, history, and traditions. Dear friends and colleagues, last year we actively and thoroughly discussed many issues of interest to everyone gathered here. I hope you will understand. Unfortunately, I will not be able to do so today, but I am confident that everything that has taken place at this forum and on the platforms organized by the participants has been highly engaging and beneficial. We are always happy to welcome you to Russia not only at this forum but also at the many events Russia organizes in a wide range of areas related to both our culture and global culture, of which our country is undoubtedly a part. Thank you for your attention. I wish you all the best. Thank you very much. Thank you for joining us on Our World. If you found this content valuable, please like, comment, and subscribe.